All right, ladies and gentlemen, on the guest list this week, we have a true living legend, one of the most underrated and underappreciated songwriters of the last 30 years, the lead singer of Counting Crows, Mr. Adam Duritz. Adam, how are you, buddy?
Thank you. Woo!
I tried. Was that a little heavy for the intro right there?
No, it was good. It was strong. I liked it.
You're like, it was honest because it is true. Yeah. Dude, I've always been such a big fan of your songwriting, and I want to get into that in a minute. But I was like listening to the first record today while I was driving, and I was like, there are so many hints of like Seeger and like the band in there. And like, do you think that that got lost within like being like the pop rock boom of the 90s, like just how like kind of Americana and honest the songwriting was?
I don't know. I mean, people liked it a lot.
Yeah, they
did. So, I don't feel like they missed much on that record because everybody seemed to listen to it. I don't know what particular they were digging from it, but they dug deep. I feel like there's stuff that got missed on other records, but that one I feel like, it's in everybody's consciousness.
I mean, it's starting with Round Here and the stepped out the front door like a ghost into a fog where no one notices the contrast of white on white. It's such a fucking heavy lyric for such a big pop hit.
I'm deep.
He's a deep guy, man.
One of us.
Yeah, he is one of us, dude. This is going to be a fun conversation. I can tell right off the top. And when speaking of one of us, once again, doing my research, I'm a bartender and trying to live the rock star lifestyle. And when I was watching the Rogan interview, you went over how you were bartending the Viper Room after the first record came out. Can you please go over that story for me?
Well, I didn't really know many people in LA. But I did know the people running the Viper Room and the people working there because I hung out there a few times, and I'd gotten to be pretty good friends with those guys. And after a year and a half of touring our first record, the Bay Area was kind of unlivable. There were people camped out on my lawn. It just seemed to kind of be an issue wherever I went, and I was having a bad time. I'd been home for about a week, about a week, and it was kind of a pain in the ass. And I got a phone call from Sal Janko and Johnny Depp one day, and they could tell I wasn't in a great mood. And so they stopped what they were calling me about, and they asked what was going on, and I kind of told them. And they put me on hold. I sat there for a while. Like about 5 minutes later, they came back, and they said, all right, you got a reservation on like the 7:00 flight out of Oakland to Burbank. We got you a room at the Bellage. We're throwing a party. The club's closed tonight. We're throwing a party for Kate Moss's 21st birthday. We were calling to invite you, but you got to get the hell out of there. Come down here and we'll figure it all out. And so all right, yeah, shit. I got on a plane. I went to LA and I kind of never went home again. I ended up moving to LA, but I mean, they kind of made it easy for me to like actually leave home and move. They just made it great, and so it was the only place I knew people. So I would hang out there every night, and it was less crowded on that side of the bar than out on the other side. And so I would end up sitting there anyways. My friends were all the bartenders. Eventually I started helping out, and eventually I just started doing it every night. I made great tips for them.
Were you on the schedule?
No, I was there every night though. I mean, pretty much every night I would go work bartending. I made great tips for everybody. And, I mean, it wasn't anything official. I wasn't getting paid. I was just doing it. I needed a place to chill out though. And like I said, it was less crowded on that side of the bar,
I love the fact that I'm trying so hard to get out from behind the bar and you're like, fuck, please put me behind the bar. I need this.
It was cool for a while though. It really gave me like a refuge at a time when like the world had just sort of turned upside down on me. And I was like, I didn't know how to deal with being really, really famous all of a sudden. It was a lot, and here was a place where it didn't matter. Like, it was just cool. I was okay to be me, and everybody treated me like a regular person. And a lot of them were, more famous than me. So it wasn't that big a deal. There were just a lot of really interesting people running around that joint.
That's one of the cool, I mean, for all of its flaws, that's one of the cool things about LA, is that you can kind of be somebody, and for the most part, anybody in the same field or world will just like, what's up, dude? Very normal.
Yeah, it was kind of cool. I think I came from a struggling artist town, which had been great, when I was one, but they weren't very happy with me being a successful artist. And it was kind of great to go to a working artist town where everyone was just interested in working and doing their job and not obsessed with, well, you're a sellout or whatever, all this bullshit about like not being happy for the next door neighbor who made it,
Mhm.
and it was just kind of great to be in a place where everyone was just kind of working and not thinking about that crap.
Mm-hmm.
There is that give and take, I feel like, where it's like you want to be the person who stuck around and stayed in your town and made it, but then did you get shit from your hometown and people being like, oh, you sold out, you have a hit record, you're making all this money
Oh, yeah.
and fame and shit? People gave you shit for that?
For a little while. I mean, at first, that's kind of one of the reasons it was a pain in the ass coming home from tour. I mean, I would say 90% of it was people who were just like happy, but you still couldn't go anywhere. But then there were people who were just like really, really pissed off about it. Enough of them that it started to feel like I'm not really enjoying this. But the main thing was that it was an issue everywhere, like good or bad. It was just too much attention.
Yeah.
Like I just needed to get the fuck out of there. I mean, there were people camped out on our lawn. That was not cool.
No, that sounds terrible. That sounds like when we were
Yeah.
talking to Duddy B from the Dirty Heads and people were putting cactuses on his porch because they found out he likes cactuses. Remember that, Kenny?
Yeah.
Dude, people get crazy. The gifts you would receive, like from people with like I got a little like box that somebody gave me and it had a picture of like my face and my wife's face and my dog's. And there's like
no.
it's crazy. I wanted, and people used to always give us treats like cupcake snacks or whatever. And I went to go eat the first one, and my tour manager like slaps it out of my hand. And he goes, "You can't eat that shit, man."
Yeah. I mean, whether it's a nice gift or not, it feels a little weird to have them show up on your porch.
Yeah, that's
It's like get the hell off my porch.
be respectful.
Yeah, it's the one place I
there's
can just
personal
hang
space.
out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did it happen
Weird.
quickly for you guys? Like, did Counting Crows like take off quickly, or was this like you guys struggled in your hometown, busted your ass, or was this just like from the jump on set, it's on?
No, I've been in the clubs, for about 10 years.
Wow.
Maybe, I mean, I don't know where you measure it from, from when I started writing songs. I was 27 the first time anyone from any record company came to see a band I was in. I was 28 when we got signed. And I was 29 when the first record came out.
Wow.
So it was, we weren't kids anymore at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Did that help with the transition, or did that hurt? Like the fact that you had lived a life prior to becoming famous?
Oh, it probably helped because my drug days were behind me. I would have to say that was probably a good thing because they were a bit out of control when I was a kid. And I enjoyed them greatly. And it's, as long as you're a kid, why not go fucking crazy? But that would not have been the best involvement in adult rock star life.
Especially
There's nothing cute. There's nothing cute about a 30-year-old just getting introduced to cocaine.
No.
There's nothing cute about that.
No.
Wasn't there a bidding war even before that first record came out, or was that after that first record came out?
No, it was before the first record. There was to sign us.
How do you process that? Like, what's that feeling like?
Well, I mean, it was kind of a good feeling in a way because I thought, well, we're going to get a chance, because, it's, you spend your life being creative or trying to be an artist, but it doesn't seem like anyone's even going to notice that you exist. So at least at this point, we were going to get to make records. And, if they're not successful, they're not successful, whatever that, but we were going to get a chance. And so that was a cool thing. We traded all the money away. Anyways, we got offers from pretty much every record company in existence. The only ones who didn't were the ones where they were like Columbia and Epic, where they're both Sony, and so only one of them, because they don't compete with themselves. But
yeah.
But pretty much every record company offered us deals, and there were millions of dollars on the table, and we traded it all away. We signed at Geffen. I think my advance that I took home was $3,000.
No shit.
Because it was 15,000 for all five of us. But we traded all the upfront money away for higher royalties, which is better anyways, and complete creative control.
Wow.
We had complete creative control. We had higher royalties, and we had 3 guaranteed records.
And did they try to push back on that, on the creative control? And how often is that? How often do record companies push back on creative control?
Oh, I think they push back on it every day for all bands, and and they could have done it with us too, because you can fudge what creative control is. You could say, yeah, you could do whatever you want, but the consequences are this, and you know what I mean? Like they could pull that shit, but that never really happened because, I mean, we were pretty successful right out of it.
Right.
Our first record sold 10 million copies, so that after that, we weren't listening to anybody.
Dave, I could tell you something crazy that after my live music days, getting into the producing days, the amount of times I'm communicating with an A&R person over what the record needs instead of the band, which a lot of times is for up and coming bands, but like it happens, and it happens a lot.
Oh yeah, it's the land of dumb advice.
Yes.
Yeah, word for a third.
Yeah.
When you so you guys did have creative control, but when you dropped the record off to the label in that first record, of course, there's a lot of wordy songs on there. There's not like, did they know that there were hits, or were they kind of like, we'll just see what happens here?
Oh, I don't know if they knew that they were hits, but they loved it.
All right, good.
I mean, I don't think anybody knows when you get hits.
Right.
And the ones that people thought were hits weren't the ones that were hits. But
that's how it always goes.
But I mean, Geffen was also kind of a boutique label. The guy that signed us had signed us, Nirvana, Sonic Youth, the Sundays, the Posies,
good track record.
Teenage Fan Club. It was a lot of Peter Gabriel, Ricky Lee Jones, Maria McKee. It was a lot of, indie rock and also just kind of arty rock bands. So there was, they were into what we did, and even more into it when we made the first record, and it turned out to be a lot better than what we had done before. Was way better than our demos had been. And they were thrilled. They got that first record. They were really fucking excited. They thought it was great. But, it was very much an indie record label. You were hoping to sell a couple 100,000 copies and make a good first impression. Nobody was expecting, us and Nirvana to do what we did, to blow up like that. I mean, I remember when that happened. I knew those guys because the same guy signed both of us, and Kurt and I were like his younger brother, his little brothers, and, I think they thought we were great bands and in a lot of ways the future, but, I think they were more comfortable with what the Posies and Teenage Fan Club were doing, where they're getting good reviews and they did pretty well. They sold some 100,000, 400,000, 500,000 copies maybe, or less. That would have been cool for a first record, and you build a career like REM was probably the model for bands that like built a career that was kind of indestructible after a while, but they came up like an indie band, and that's how they looked at us. It's just that after a while, it went through the fucking roof.
One sec, sorry. One of my most specific, like, earliest memories, I was born in 88, late 88, so basically 89, when Mr. Jones came out and the whole record, August, and my dad would literally, on the presets, we had a big ass conversion van, on the presets of each, on the buttons, he would push it and he'd be like, all right, give it 2 minutes, Mr. Jones will be playing. 2 minutes, Mr. Jones. And he would like be able to call it. It was the first song I ever learned start to finish, verbatim, word for word, in 93 or 94 as a 4 or 5 year old kid or whatever.
Yeah, it was weird. Mr. Jones was a pretty big hit on the radio, but it wasn't doing anything. Like the record wasn't even in the top 200. It hadn't moved really.
That shocks me.
We played Saturday Night Live, like somewhere the second week of January, 94, and we played Round Here. And then the record jumped 40 spots a week for 5 weeks, 6 weeks, and we ended up at number 2 for the next 2 years, basically.
Jesus.
But it was like Mr. Jones sort of set it up in a way where everyone's, oh, this is a kind of a cool pop band. Everybody likes this song. It's kind of a groovy song. And then we went on the TV and played Round Here, and people went, oh shit, I love this band. And then our career took off. We played Round Here again on Letterman a couple months later, and it was through the roof. Like the record just, next thing we know, we're on the cover of Rolling Stone. It had a lot to do with Saturday Night Live and Letterman, because you got to think they booked us on that show and we weren't even a band in the top 200.
Right.
I feel like Letterman was great for that. Letterman had his finger on the pulse of a lot of like young bands and gave them shots.
Yeah.
I'm so stoked. I'm curious. I want to geek out for a second. For like that first record, August. Compared to how records are made today, and like one of the last records I made was an Anti-Flag record I did in 20 days. I'm curious, was like that record one of those 6 months processes with 3 weeks on drums, all recording to tape? Like, was that like, what was that process of making that record?
It was a long process, but not like that with the drums where people are trying to get everything perfect on one instrument. It wasn't that. It was that we were trying to figure out what we sounded like, because our demos, we had really good demos, but they kind of sounded like late model Roxy music, like Avalon era Roxy music, and it felt like it was going to be dated to me, and I wanted us to kind of learn how to be a band, and so we sort of took everyone's crutches away. Our guitar player was very like Stone Roses influence with a lot of effects. We took all the effects away. Our drummer was playing this, too many drums kit. We took half the drums away from him. Our bass player was playing these like sort of fretless basses, took them away, got an old Hofner and a Vox. We switched from any like synthesizers to just like accordion, piano, and organ. It wasn't because we were trying to be some sort of like Americana band. It was just that I wanted us to strip everything away that we were leaning on and just get in a room and learn to play together. And we stood in a circle in this room and we played songs until we got a feeling for what our band was going to be like. And it took a little while doing that, but it wasn't like, 3 months of a drum part. It was more like, a couple months of everybody standing in a circle trying to figure out how to do it. We rented this house up in the hills. I was really afraid we'd go into a studio and get real sterile and try to be perfect. And we had sat down with Robbie Robertson at one point, and I talked to him about like, wow, I'm really scared about this one thing, this our first record, it's a big deal. I don't want to get in there and try and be perfect, because perfect is not the same thing as good. That's clean and it's not necessary. I want to be great, and he said, well, why don't you just rent a house? That's what we used to do. And then it's like T-Bone said something like, yeah, studios stink of other people's bad records anyways. So we rented this house in like Brentwood up in the hills. We built a studio in it, and just kind of all lived there together and recorded.
So you basement taped it.
We did that for every record. The first record we ever really did in a studio was Saturday Nights and Sunday Mornings, which is 2007, so like 15 years later. The first 4 records were all recorded in houses.
Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, after our first record, we kind of bought the gear so we could just like load it in. We had friends who were carpenters that were good at like sort of soundproofing, and they just come in and they'd hook up, soundproof the windows and stuff, and we would just move in together and record. So that first record, that's what we did. It was sort of stretched. We got kind of in a hole near the end where we were like laying tracks with people like for ages. Bill Dillon, who did a lot of stuff with Daniel Lanois, who's this great guitar player, but he played a lot of, he had his instrument he invented called a guitorgan, kind of makes that whale sound stuff that, and so Bill Dillon came by and played on something. He loved the record so much. At this point, we'd moved to Ocean Way because we were just doing last overdubbing. He said, you don't even have to pay me anymore. If you just set me up in a studio, I'll record stuff on this record all day. And I was like, oh, how cool is that? That sounds great. It's not until later that you think about, no, we didn't pay him at all, but we did pay for a room at Ocean Way and an engineer for all this time. And he laid incredible track after incredible track after incredible track, almost none of which we used because that whale sound it was brilliant stuff, but it didn't really fit on the record. And so when we went to mix, we ended up removing almost all of it, except for he played this one really cool acoustic guitar track, just a plain acoustic guitar track that I think might be on Omaha. And that we ended up leaving and using, which is just something he came in one time. We were struggling with the sound of it. And he said, I don't think that acoustic guitar track is great. Let me just do something. He went in and he played it. And we're like, oh, yeah. And I think after all the incredible avant-garde stuff he did, the only thing we really used was that acoustic guitar.
He said, I've been sitting in a studio for 6 months playing the guitargan, and all you did was use an acoustic guitar.
Yeah.
It's simple, man.
That's like you hit your Dewey Cox moment where he's got the army of 50,000 didgeridoos and you have the guitargan on your records, dude. I love that shit. But it is funny because the first record obviously went huge, and then the second record, everything afterwards, like you guys are ubiquitous for all that time period. I think my one question is, being kind of your background and what I guess historically I know you love, were you expecting more of an indie band career, or did the superstardom take you by kind of surprise?
Well, I mean, I don't know if I was expecting anything. I mean, you hope you'll have a career that lasts forever. I mean, nobody dreams of being a rock star for a year and a half and then having everybody yawn and forget about you. But that's mostly what happens. Bands, if they have any success at all, it lasts a couple years, and then either they kill each other or the entire world falls asleep thinking about them.
Right.
It's just like people's apathy. It's undefeatable in a lot of ways. So, it's like, I think I was hoping to do this for my whole life, but I don't know what I was expecting. I thought the first record was great. I thought like the most important thing to do is just make great records.
Yeah.
And I felt like that pretty much for every record. I love every one of them. I don't have any regrets about the records, and that's sort of the important thing. But as far as the other stuff, I mean, there's just no way to know. I think most of our records are better than the first album for me.
Yeah.
But the first album is like a cultural moment where everybody fucking loves it. And
that's great. That's really cool to hear. Cause I was gonna ask, I didn't know how to word it, but I was gonna ask, do you have any regrets now that it's been this long looking back on records? Cause if I put out a song on Tuesday, a lot of times I regret it on Thursday. So so it's cool to hear that, like, to be proud of a catalog is really special and really cool. And you should be. And that's awesome.
No, I mean, I love every song on every record. I think the only reason they're on the records is because they're exactly what I wanted them to be. Especially after the first record, where I think there are some things where I learned to sing them better later. But no, the only thing I regret is I got talked into changing the title of a song on our fourth album. I wrote this song called Richard Manuel is Dead. And my manager said, no one will play a song on the radio called Richard Manuel is Dead. And I was like, it's my favorite song on the record, but that's the title. And he had this other title he wanted it ended up being called If I Could Give All My Love, or Richard Manuel is Dead, which is stupid. And If I Could Give All My Love has nothing to do with, it's just not a good title for that song. That's the only thing I regret, because someone talked me into doing something that I shouldn't do. It's kind of the only time in my career that happened.
Yeah.
That was a mistake. And
I've heard a lot of stories of singers, mine included, where like after they record the song, the record's out, they play the song live 100 times, and now there's a new melody that he's singing in one certain part. He wishes, I wish I would have sang it that way on the record, but that's just the only time I hear about stuff like that.
Well, yeah, I mean, we were talking a few years ago about we should re-record all of our records so that we own the masters, like
right.
Taylor
Swift.
Yeah, and the only problem is I have no idea what the records sound like. I mean, I stopped singing them the way they were on the record the first day after the record, and I've been singing them differently every day after that. But when I go listen to the record, I'm like, oh, that's great. It's just, to me, they feel like they're alive, so they change a little every day. So I do, change and explore them, but I don't look back on the records really, except the first one. There's a few songs where I don't love my singing, but every other time I listen to the other records and I think, oh yeah, that's really cool. Well, that's a nice approach. That moves me. I really like those vocals. I get off listening to that stuff. I don't listen to those records very much, but I'm always very pleasantly, oh, I love that,
That's awesome.
Do you ever dig back into the old stuff when you're going, because obviously you just said you kind of ignore those records now, but like when you're going in to cut new stuff or you're working, you're writing, do you kind of reference yourself at all, or are you trying to find new and creative ways to do it?
Oh, sometimes for specific reasons, I'll go listen to stuff. And also because we're always, let's play this. We haven't played it in a while. We rehearse every day on tour, because basically soundcheck is like a moving rehearsal. And so whenever people want to play something, we got to go back, check it out, listen to it. And then, so I'm always listening to stuff off those records because someone will want to play some song. But I don't know if I use it to really reference stuff. I'm not sure.
What is your reference point? Like if you're going, like right now, so say you're going to cut a new record, like what are you listening to now that interests you? Is there anything that jumps out to you?
I just got a bunch of Bowie box sets I want to check out.
Yes.
These new ones they released, Width of a Circle and Divine Symmetry. They're like the first 3 records, a bunch of extra stuff. I just got those, and I got this Flaming Lips Yoshimi Battles the Pink Robots.
Mm-hmm. Oh, hell yeah. That's Kenny's record right there.
My favorite was actually Soft Bulletin, and I wish they would do like an expanded version of that. But I did that, and I just got, what else did I get just recently that I was checking out? So Wilco Yankee Hotel Foxtrot box sets and the Summer Teeth one. So I was kind of going through those. And It could be any different stuff. The last couple weeks, it was a lot of Taylor Swift.
No shit.
'Cause I was a fan of hers when she first started, but I hadn't really listened to much the last like 10 years. My girlfriend is a huge fan. And so I got us tickets, her, me, Chris Caraba from Dashboard and his wife, and our guitar player. We all went to, they came up to stay with us for the weekend, and we all went to see the show. So I wanted to research it, and she made me some playlists. And then I started like researching the records so that I would, know what I was getting into at the concert. And I kind of flipped out on how good some of the songwriting is.
Awesome.
I really loved a lot of it. And I mean, the concert was like some combination of, look, she'd be great if she was just on stage with a guitar or a piano, because when she did that, she was amazing. But the concert was like some combination of a Broadway play, a really cool theme ride at a theme park, and the first time I saw Avatar in 3D and blew my mind. It was the most incredible technologically advanced thing I have ever seen. It was jaw-dropping, like how bleeding edge they are on what they're doing in those shows for the technology of like a show, because I know I play shows every day and I love playing in my band. This is a whole other thing.
Yeah.
And they did it in such a way that it wasn't like, here's a bunch of flash to distract you from, this is a bunch of mediocre music. They did it in such a way that was like, here's a bunch of stuff that really accentuates and elaborates upon the music and makes the music more involving and moving, which I was kind of flipped out by. The artistry that went into all the production side of it was like, I don't know. We were talking about this afterwards because Chris was on tour with U2 20 years ago at one point, and I remember going to that show because our tour manager came up in U2's organization, like from the beginning together. So we know those guys, and I went to a bunch of U2 shows when I was younger, and they were really on the front edge of technology and shows with what they were doing. But this thing made them look like what it was like first generation stuff 20 years ago. It was fucking crazy. Like, I haven't been to a stadium show in a long time. I wasn't really excited about it, but it was fucking phenomenal, I have to say. And I've been listening to that music a lot the last week before that and since then, like reviewing it more and kind of being really impressed by the production, the songwriting, her performances. Like, it's kind of knocking me out. It surprised me.
I long tried to rage against I don't know, like we talk a lot about her fan base scares me because it's so passionate. And like, there's a part of me that wants to rage against that. And then we were up in New York at the Barstool office and we did this new video series we're doing where you get drunk and you review an album while you're doing it. And they did Taylor Swift's 1989. And by like the fourth song and like my third drink, I was like, holy shit, this is fucking sick, dude. I was like, the songwriting really is great. I can't deny it.
Yeah, it's weird. Those guys, like those Swedish producers like Max Martin and Shellback.
Yeah.
Those guys have made a lot of music with bands that I have not liked. And so I always kind of thought of them as kind of hacks because they know how to make hits, but I just didn't like any of it, this boy band stuff. But it made me realize what a difference it makes them getting to work with a good songwriter and a better singer who actually cares about the music. And then they end up just being like really craftsman-like talented producers who turn this into something. Yeah, because some of those songs, all the hits from 1989 and Reputation and Red, all of those are Max Martin and Shellback. And I went through and checked who did this one. Okay, this is them. Same. And like, wow, working with someone good, it's an entirely different thing from them doing some boy band music. Like, this is a whole other thing where it's like, oh, put them with someone really good and they'll make them great, really inventive. It was kind of, people I've taken for granted for a lot of years that I was forced to really like completely rethink the last couple of weeks.
Well, from a production side, like, did you work with T-Bone Burnett?
Yeah, he did the first album.
No shit, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's kind of what made him a big deal as a record producer. That was the first big, I think, really big record he did. And then Jake Dillon and I, who were friends from the Viper Room, we talked a lot because they'd made their first album. It was pretty good. They got dropped though by Virgin. It didn't do well, but it was kind of unformed and it wasn't like a sense of who they were. And I said, T-Bone is really difficult in some ways, but he's very good at working on people's first albums or the ones that like make them who they are. He'd done the Los Lobos stuff,
Yeah.
the Bodines. He did some really formative stuff with bands, and I suggested him to Jake, and they ended up using it. And I actually ended up going and singing on that record, and that's what the Wallflowers came after us and were big hit too.
He did Bring It Down the Horse? Bring It Down the Horse?
Yeah, that's the one I suggested him to Jake, and T-Bone did that. Those are kind of two in a row that he did. Those are the two records that made him, T-Bone Burnett, sort of.
Well, it's funny. I just last night watched the Lost Basement Tapes documentary, where he went in with like Taylor Goldsmith and Marcus Mumford and Rhiannon Giddens, and I geeked out on T-Bone Burnett. But I think it leads me to my question of like, if you could work with a producer that you haven't worked with previously, do you think could unlock something in you as a songwriter, you as a band? Like, who would you pick?
I don't know. I really
Kenny Carkey.
Like for the longest time, I only worked with people once, and then because I always felt like I had more to learn from different people. Then we worked with Gil Norton again on Saturday nights and Sunday mornings. He had done Recovering the Satellites, our second record, and I really was into him because he did all the Pixies records. They were really formative for me. And then we worked a bunch of times with Brian Deck since then too. He did the Sunday mornings half of Saturday nights and Sunday mornings, and then we've been working with Brian for like the last 3 records, and it's been kind of great. I just kind of love working with him. But I had thought about it. I don't know. Shit, I mean, I like the idea of remixing and doing other stuff. It'd be interesting to try something with like Max Martin at some point. I don't know. I honestly don't think I never really thought about that stuff because I don't like to work the way they work.
Right.
I really like to feel stuff out in the studio and just play and get a groove with the band. But I was sort of just intrigued by what a good job they do of making just almost like the Motown production team, how they just sort of knew how to make something that that was really genius, but you couldn't help listening to it over and over again at the one point, in the 60s.
Before we started the episode, we were talking about our mutual friend Matthew Coleman. I think that'd be an interesting, real cool.
Oh yeah, Matt is really talented that way. The Winnetka Bowling League stuff is so good. He's someone I actually that's not a bad idea. I don't know. We're not easy to work with. I often don't want to wish that upon friends,
Yeah. I respect that. I do. I'm going to step out shortly, but I had one more question before I dip off this interview. And going back through, and I was just counting down the hits, and then I got to the song from the Shrek 2 soundtrack, right? Which is a great fucking song. And I love asking people about big syncs that they've had. But the one question I did have is that video treatment where they put your hair and goatee onto a rabbit. Did you know that was happening? Did they approve that? Or did you watch that and go, what the fuck is this?
No, that was all me.
Was it? Were you in a motion capture suit as a giant rabbit?
No, I just didn't want to be in the video. I was busy. I was feeling like I was getting really self-conscious on film. Like I was great on stage, but I had just been feeling less and less comfortable with myself. And I was just getting really self-conscious. And I felt like I was really shitty in a few videos in a row before that, where I had just been kind of stiff and just not feeling good about myself. And I said, look, this is an animated movie. You should have an animated version of me that's, try a rabbit. I'd been a rabbit for Halloween for like 20 years, a lot of years at that point. And I suggested that, and it's kind of, I just didn't want to be in any videos for a while.
That's fucking awesome.
And I suggested that, and I fucking love that horny little rabbit that was around that chick's bedroom.
Oh my god, dude! That honestly, fuck that. That's how you end the interview right there. But before we do leave, you guys are going on tour. When do you guys kick off? Where you heading?
I'm leaving Sunday. We start off in LA. We're playing like a semi-secret show at the Won't Be After This.
Yeah.
I think they announced it yesterday anyways, at the Troubadour in LA, the little club in LA. And then we're heading to Omaha, and we start the tour kind of in Omaha. Although Dashboard doesn't really join us until Indy, like 2 shows later.
So Counting Crows and Dashboard Confessional?
Yeah, man, I'm so excited because Chris is one of my best friends. And I've wanted to go on tour with Dashboard for 20 years now.
Yeah.
And we just could not get promoters. Didn't think it was the same audience, that it wouldn't work. And I toured with Chris's other band, his bluegrass band, Twin Forks. They opened for us, and it was like the best time. because he's the best guy on earth.
Yeah.
So
I like
man,
hearing that.
yeah, he's like the best guy you've ever met ever, and I love him, and I cannot wait to hang out all summer. It's like touring with your best friends is really cool because you can see them play every night, and you don't have to like, I don't know, it's just nice.
Are you gonna bring the dreads back for the tour?
Bring the what?
The dreads?
Nah, they're done, man.
How long have they been
Now
down?
I'm just growing my luscious hair.
Yeah, you
out.
have beautiful hair, by the way.
It's coming back. It was kind of fucked up after having dreads hanging off it for 30 years. But like I really love when I was a kid, I had a big problem in my life that like I was really uncomfortable. I have a dissociative disorder, which makes the world seem like it's not real. And I didn't like looking in the mirror because I felt like that's not who I thought I was. And it didn't feel right what I was seeing in the mirror. It didn't feel like me. But when I got the dreads, it was like the first time in my life I felt like, oh, now that's how I feel inside.
Wow.
I can shake my head around and wave it. That feels like me. I'm in a rock band. That feels like me. And it was a really important like self-confidence thing for me. It was kind of huge for a lot of years. But it was also 30 years, and I feel like I was just happy when I shaved them off. I was like, for months, I would like be in people's houses or my house. I would pass by a bathroom and I would look around and I would go in the bathroom. I would stick my head under the sink and just like get my hair wet and then dry it off because it was really short. It would dry off in 5 seconds. I hadn't been able to stick my head under a sink in years. You couldn't get the dreads wet. So like, It was just so good that for the first year after I shaved them off, I was constantly sticking my head under the sink at people's houses because it felt so like novel, and good. Now it's getting a little too long for that. It's too hard to dry it.
No, man, it's beautiful. That's a beautiful head of hair.
Thanks, man.
That's how we leave this up right there. Just me being like, dude, you got great hair.
Horny rabbits and great hair, man. That's
Horny rabbits and great hair. That's the name of the tour right there.
Yeah.
So you'll see the Cannon Crows on the Horny Rabbits and Great Hair tour with Dashboard Confessional.
Next tour, man. If this episode is big enough, we'll just that's the name.
Say no more.
All right.
Damn, that's fucking sick. All right, Adam, thank you so much, man. We'll see you soon. Your seat's always open. All right.
Thanks, man. Appreciate it.
All right, brother. Take it easy.
See you later.
Catch you soon. Thank you, guys.